me dio mi regalo. Yo en estamos mal, y ya había salido de la casa. Y no, me regreso a unos apartamentos.
Hey, Carter. I'm going right now, so we got a couple people on Zoom.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so there you go. There might be. We didn't look at anybody. I didn't realize that we were running late.
That's all good. Yeah. I think we'll probably like about 45, even about 5 minutes.
Perfect.
Does that sound good, y'all? Taking that as
Yes,
yes.
I am too. Hello?
Hey, you know, we don't have information on here. Now we do have.
Student.
Give me the good stuff. Well, I guess I can move up a little bit. Yeah, well, I'm already spread out.
Is that not big enough? No, probably not. I just got.
Well,
to think
you know,
about it.
I'm gonna scoot up. Not right between them and.
A little better.
That is.
Yeah.
That's a settlement state, or.
Okay.
All of the. It is a person. Tomorrow should be fun. It's gonna be a gorgeous day. For the backyard. Yeah. What are you gonna? My black. Oh, did you? We're going to Decatur. And work with the. It'll be awesome. Ever since that, I had already signed up for the nursing home one, you know, easy candy. But ever since that lady came to. I was like, when she signed in, yeah, I was like, oh, that'll be great, yeah. She's very professional. Yes, yeah. But Kim did a great job. See, at the beginning, she was like, I know. Couldn't. No, no. Like, got us through everything. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because I'm gonna be up here. Do you want to get up here closer to me? Like right here?
Oh, sure. Like a little corner spot, that's fine. You're talking about that. This is only for you, because I'm really. I like that too, like, I don't know. Yeah, just alleviate that. Yeah.
Now, we're gonna give everybody about maybe like 2 more minutes. Wait till about 12:45. We're gonna see if we can get everybody in here.
That's fine.
And then we'll get started. For my folks out there in Zoom,
Wish y'all were here.
I do wish y'all were here.
Can you email it to them?
I was about to say, can we email that to these people? June and Linda, y'all, I'm gonna get a little close to the, I believe they call this thing the owl, is what I was told it was called last time. I'm gonna show you this right here. This is our settlement statement. I'm gonna get Emily, it won't, there we go. I'm gonna get Emily to send it to y'all, on your email. And then that way y'all just follow along with us. We're gonna go over this. It's very important. You know, that we get this down. Definitely a big ticket item when it comes to closing. Got some good information on there, and information that is.
Or this does help to move up, or it's not like me, my life.
Well, there you go. And then also, Jim, right here on this board, I've got my telephone number for my office. Now I've got my telephone number for my cell phone here as well, and I've got my email address on there also. So if y'all need anything, got questions after this, we got just questions in general, feel free to call me, feel free to email me, and we'll get you set up.
I'll include that in my email.
Yep, Emily's gonna put that in the email for y'all. If you just wanna write it down now, office number 678-373-0558. Cell phone number 404-291-4401. And then that email address, if you need to get a hold of me via email, that's gonna be Tenney, TENNEY @mmg.law. Okay, I'll feel free to give me a call. Gonna wait for Emily to get those get this settlement statement over to y'all. That way you can follow along with us as we go. Because that is a big ticket item. It's important that you kind of at least have a working knowledge of what's going on when the attorney that you selected goes over something.
678, which one's your cell, which one's your?
Cell phone number is the 404 number. Office number is 678. Just let me know when those emails are sent out, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Which one did you say? Your cell?
Cell phone number is 404-291-4401. Okay? Give y'all a minute or two to go ahead and get that settlement statement up off the email, and we'll dive on in. Get the y'all today, the 10th of the 11th. It is the 10th. Okay, good. Hey, y'all, I don't know if there's any way you can tell me if you got it up or not, but I'm gonna assume you've already got those documents up. And we'll go ahead and get this show on the road, okay? So, y'all, my name is Carter Tenney. I'm an attorney with McMichael Gray Closing Attorneys. We're here at this office up here at Keller Williams Chattahoochee North. Got Emily Raymond over there helping me out today. She's our agent service representative. If I'm not mistaken, that's what ASR stands for.
You're right.
Perfect, y'all, got that down. We're doing closings in office up here. If there's anything we can help you with, if we can get a closing set up, if you've got questions about a contract, if you've got any kind of issues that you're just like, hey, I need to call somebody, or I need an attorney to answer this for me, give us a call. Get a hold of me, get a hold of Emily. We'd love to work with you. We are closing loans in office too. We're closing them right up here. I did one, about a week ago, right over here. It's pretty neat. We're, like I said, we're a one-stop shop here. Come on down. It's very convenient. If this location doesn't work for you, we've got 17 other locations across the state. Anywhere from coming to Conyers, we can get you closed. Just let us know. Thanks for coming to this class today. We're going to talk about Closings 101. This is more of a class geared towards newer agents. I don't know how many closings y'all have had. Man, do me a favor. Sharon, how many closings have you had?
No.
Yeah, no, okay, good, cool. So you're right, you're on. Y'all out there in Zoom, I don't know if you've had a few or if you've had none. You know, we'll learn some of the bigger ticket items today that we're gonna go over in closing. Specifically, I want to go over this document right here. This is an Alta settlement statement. Every closing that you have will have one of these, okay? Especially if you close with me, I know most of the other closing attorneys have it as well. They may not have theirs set up the same way I have mine, but for all intents and purposes, this is the basic way that this document's gonna be set up. And what is this? Is probably what Sharon's asking right now, what the heck is this like? It is a breakdown of all the fees involved in a transaction, okay? So if it is, you know, if it was involved in the closing, if it's the sales price of the property, if you've got seller credit, if you've got some sort of debt payoff for a buyer or something, it's gonna be shown on here. If it's a dollar amount, it's on here. So let's go through this. I'm gonna take it down to the most basic level, and we are gonna go line by line. Okay, we're gonna talk about everything on here. Some of these things I will group into categories, and then we'll break that down a little bit. But like I said, we're gonna dive into it. So if my folks on Zoom have it, Sharon, you've got your property. The first thing you're gonna notice is up here at the top, we've got our closing attorney firm name up there. Most other closing attorneys will have something very similar to that. That way, you know, probably by the time you got there, you should know where you're at. You should know, you know, who you're closing with, but just in case to confirm, you've got the information right there. The next thing that we've got up here at the top, the way I have mine set up, is usually we have some sort of a file number. Y'all, that is an internal file number for the firm, okay? That right there will, you need to have that number somewhere. You've probably gotten it long before you have, you know, got to this closing table. That's how I know which file we're working on. Okay, so always a good idea to have some sort of internal file number. That way, if you do have to call me or ask a question about something, I can pull the file. Under that, we've got our loan officer. In this case, we got Amy's name on there. Whoever's closing the loan, you know, sometimes we'll have the firm name on there. That's what that is. Settlement location, that's where we're actually closing. That is the address of the attorney. Come on down, property address. That's a big ticket item right here on this altar. That is the property that we're closing. When you get to the closing table and this is circulated at that table, make sure that matches with what you're actually selling. Okay? You know, I've seen closings where, you know, everybody gets to the table and there's a different address on there. The one time that I had that happen is I just grabbed the wrong package. I had to go back to the back and grab the right one. But again, that should jive up and should match the property that we are selling. Under that, we have our borrower name. Okay, in this case, we've got Bo Buyer right there. This is a training. That's not a real person's name. That's just a training name that I put on there. That should match our people who are buying the property, okay? Under that, we have the seller, in this case, John Smith. He's an executor. Right here, I see, you can see we have executor of the estate, so we would be selling this with him as, you know, executor. It would be the same if he was just an individual. It'd be the same if he was, you know, a member of a corporation or something like that. The thing that I want you to take away from this, though, you want to true up the borrower's name and the seller's name to who we have at the table or who you brought with you to the closing that day. Okay? We just got to make sure that those things match, something to look at. Under that, we've got lender information. Here, we've got the prestigious loans. They're the ones who are going to be fronting the money for this transaction. You want to check that, make sure lenders match up on this one to make sure if you're representing the buyer, that those are the guys you've been talking to, okay? And finally, the two things in there, we got settlement date, disbursement date. Settlement date is the day of closing, disbursement date is when funds will be dispersed. The only time that disbursement date will probably be different is going to be on refinance transaction, because you're gonna have that 3-day right of rescission all there, okay? So that disbursement date may be about 3 days different if we have a refinance. Today, we're just going over a basic, purchase with a loan. While we're on that topic, let's say y'all go into a closing, you got a cash closing, or you do have a refinance. And you're like, well, Carter, will the Alta look any different? It will look a little different on both those transactions, since we don't really have a seller. When it comes to a refinance or anything like that, we're just gonna have one side laid out for the borrower. When it comes to a cash closing, we're not gonna have the section that says loan charges, okay? Because we're dealing with cash, we don't have a lender. All right? Sweet, y'all, let's go ahead and dive a little further. As you can see on this settlement statement, we have two sides. We've got a seller side and we've got a borrower side, okay? So, we've got two parties. Let's talk about the seller side first. The only reason I usually start with the seller side in my closings, less stuff to go over. We can go ahead and get them knocked out. We can have them sitting tight while I switch over to the buyer and, go down this laundry list of things that they have to, that they need to have explained to them. So we're looking on the seller side. In this case, it's my right-hand side, y'all's left-hand side, seller side. First thing we've got, sales price of the property. Okay, that is where the actual sales price is gonna go. When this gets in your hand, check that out. That is gonna be a trigger point. That's one of those things that I want y'all to look at immediately when you hit the table. Make sure that sales price screws up with what y'all had in the contract, okay? Come on down under that. The next thing under seller, we're gonna have is a seller credit. Another trigger point for my folks who are out there representing sellers. Make sure that is correct. Now, a lot of times, seller credits, they can change while you're going through the contract process. Sometimes they want you to add more. Sometimes you get rid of a seller credit. Check that out. Make sure that your seller is, given what they said they would give and, not more and not less, okay? That is also borrower side. We'll talk about that here in a minute, but my folks that represent sellers, right there, check that out. Under that, we got prorations. Y'all, there's usually 3 things that are gonna go under there. We've got HOA, county, and city taxes, okay? So, proration for the HOA dues. You gotta pay the HOA dues for the time that you own the property. So, in this case, my sellers, let's say, we're in April, it's April 1st. They've lived on the property from January 1st to April 1st. That's 4 months, if I'm not mistaken. My math is not wrong on that one. We've got 4 months that they've lived on the property. They gotta pay for those 4 months. So we are going to prorate that deal. And that's gonna be a credit over to, that's gonna be a credit to the seller, gonna be a debit on the buyer side, okay? So that way the buyer's only paying for the time that they own the property, which is from April to the end of the year in December, okay? Under that, we got city and county taxes. Taxes are also prorated, same thing like we were talking about with the HOA. For the time that you own the property, you gotta pay for your time of taxes. Again, let's use the example that we're selling this bad boy in April. So from January to April, that seller's gonna have to pay for their portion of the tax. They're gonna give it as a credit over here to the buyer. And the buyer at the end of the year is gonna get a tax bill for the whole bill, but that credit that they got in closing is to offset what for the time they didn't live on the property. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
The only thing that's a little confusing, I keep saying we're selling in April, but according to this, we're selling on the wrong side.
Okay, excuse me, I'm sorry about that. My examples aren't jiving up with what's on the settlement statement. Forgive me for that. So we'll go with what we have on the settlement statement. That's on me, y'all. We're on the script there. Let's say for Valentine's Day, so then we are 2 months in. So now we're only gonna pay for 2 months of property taxes for our seller. And the buyer's gonna pay from February on down to December. So let's go down here one more time. We've got city taxes, county taxes, same, principle for each. The time you own the property is the time you pay for it. Okay, that's how we prorate it. Under that, we've got loan charges. So in this scenario that I have here, and y'all flip me to the second page, we're kind of gonna, be in this weird space between page 1 and page 2 for just a second. Loan charges aren't typically anything the seller's gonna have to deal with. Okay, most of the time, that's gonna be an entire thing for the buyer. However, that doesn't mean that you can't, write that into a contract, hey, the seller's gonna pay for my buyer's closing costs or something. Maybe you can make that happen. If you can, it'd be pretty sweet. But just something that, that can change. But the typical way is you won't see loan charges over on the seller side. Does that mean it can't happen? Absolutely not. It can, if I don't want y'all to go to a closing somewhere and you see a charge over there for the seller and buyer side, and y'all say, well, I remember that time I went to Carter Tennant's class. He told me that that ain't a thing. It could, okay, it's not always 100% going to be blank. Most of the time it will be though. We're on the second page. And we have a whole lot of blanket through here, y'all. So again, most of that's gonna be loan charges, impounds, title charges. Title charges are my fees. A lot of times that's gonna be a typical buyer paid for item. Okay, seller's not usually gonna pay for it. I mean, they can. A lot of times it's not. We get to commissions down here at the bottom of the second page. Y'all right there. That's the money word right there, literally, commissions. That's what y'all are working for. Seller is paying that most of the time, okay? So make sure that you check that out, because, we'll go ahead and say that we ain't working for free. We want that commission. We want to make sure that it is correct. So go, a lot of times I'll see some of my agents, the first thing they do, they'll flip to that second page, and that's the number they're looking for. I don't blame you. Make sure that that is what you agree to so that you get paid. We've got one set of commissions right here. I'm going to flip to this third page. We've got another set of commissions back here on the back. Why? Because a lot of times you got two agents on the deal, okay? So that's where you'll see that. Come on down to this third page. We've got some stuff that we can talk about, y'all. We're going to talk about payoffs, okay? Payoffs are usually going to be your loans that you've got in property. Your seller, most folks are selling it, they've got a loan that's got to get paid off. That's what you're going to see in this section. And in this case, we've got to pay off the first mortgage, we've got to pay off of the second mortgage, okay? A lot of times, you may have an estimate idea of what that payoff is going to be. The seller's probably going to have more of an idea of what that number should be. Always a good idea to just say, hey, look at that real quick and make sure it looks like, the numbers that you're familiar with. Come on down to miscellaneous. This is the catch-all section, y'all. All kinds of stuff can go down in through here. In this case, we've got a home warranty that our seller is paying for our buyer, and we've got an HOA letter that we had to pull that the seller's gonna pay for, okay? Other things that you might see in through here, if there's, sometimes you'll see like lien payoffs, things like that. If your seller had a lien or a FIFA against the property, they didn't pay credit card debt, cool, and winter got a hold of them. For FIFA against the property, you'll see that number down in through this area a lot of times. And here at the end, we're looking at the totals down there at the bottom where it says seller. The big number right here, money due to the seller. That is what your seller is walking away with, okay? Yes, please. After we come from the sales price and you factor out all of my fees, you factor out everything that we saw on the settlement statement, that's the number that they're gonna be walking away with, okay? And, like I always tell people, I need to get you a check or I can get you a wire, whichever they look for. That's their net. That is their net. That's what they're walking away with. Okay? Thank you. All right. Yeah, so we just talked about the seller side. Let's go ahead. We'll talk about the buyer side real quick. Give me a little drink of this water real quick.
At what point in the closing, like when you're at the table, is this the first thing that y'all touch?
That is the
Sign
first,
everything and then.
no, that is the first thing I go over in any closing I ever do. A lot of times at McMichael Gray, a lot of the attorneys I know, that's the first thing they touch. We either talk about that or we talk about a CD. And I'll kind of hit on that a little bit, after we get through with this. But all of our attorneys, this is the first thing we're gonna talk about, is we want to talk about numbers, because that's where a lot of times, if we do run into issues, that's where we hit it. And I'd rather hit them up front, that way we can talk about it, figure out what we've got going on, or I can fix it. So usually this is the first time out of the gate.
And it's the first time that everyone has seen it too.
So usually we've sent a copy of it beforehand to everybody. Usually that's gotten out at least the day before closing, because we've had to wire money or something like that. So this document, by the time you get to the table, it should not be unfamiliar. Okay, because we have sent it out, we've gotten a copy, or, either you've gotten just the buyer side, or you've got just the seller side with the numbers laid out. But yes, the first time you come to the table, not only the first time you've seen this, you should have got a copy of it beforehand too. And y'all, if you're ready, I'm sorry I keep calling y'all. We are going to talk about the borrower side. So, just to kind of give you, if y'all are looking at this with me, there's a whole lot more numbers on the borrower side. Because we factor in the loan charges on the borrower side. Let's go through it and let's talk about it. First thing out of the gate, same thing as on the seller side. We've got the sales price of the property. Okay, again, make sure that trues up with whatever you had in the contract. Okay. Under that, we got the actual loan amount. Okay. Again, you've been working with this lender for, sometimes up to 30 days. You've been, in a relationship with them. You should have some idea of what your loan amount is. Make sure that that matches what y'all talk about. Because, like I was talking about it, this is the time to remedy any kind of, issues that we have is before we go much further after this document. If you see something, say something. Under that, we got another seller credit right there. Again, my buyers, if y'all representing a buyer in this transaction, make sure they're getting everything that they're owed. Make sure that seller credit is true enough with what y'all had in the contract. Under that, prorations and adjustments, like we talked about, anything that's a seller credit is going to be a buyer debit. Anything that's a buyer credit is going to be a seller debit. Okay. So we prorate those taxes. Loan charges. That's your big ticket item if you are a buyer. Okay. Because a lot of times we've got a loan on this transaction. In this section under here, you're going to have things like, in this case, we got points. I've got a processing fee. We've got an underwriting fee, credit report fee, appraisal fee. These are typical loan fee, fees that a lender's charging you. I know up here we got Matt over at Shelter Mortgage. These guys, they have to charge for what they do. This is that section where it is all broken down into what your buyer has been paid. Flip me to the second page. And y'all, we got some more loan charges. Okay. Under that, we have our impounds. Okay. What are impounds? It's the same thing as your escrow accounts. Okay. That term will be used interchangeably. So if you go through a loan package and you say, well, we were just talking about escrows. Why does this say impound? It's the same exact thing, it's a different term that is used interchangeably. So our impounds in this case, we're escrowing away for homeowners insurance, we're escrowing away for property taxes, the two most common things to escrow away. Okay. Just to kind of give some insight in here. If you don't really know what escrow accounts are, they are accounts that are held on your buyer's behalf by the lender. Every month when they make a payment, it builds its value. In that monthly payment, it's factored in there. Builds in value at the end of the year, pays out for homeowners insurance, it pays out for property taxes. That way, that buyer at the end of the year, now he's a happy homeowner, he's not going to get hit with a $6,000 tax bill all at once and say, well, oh man, I got to come up with $6,000. He's already been storing away for it throughout the year. Same thing with your homeowners insurance. Two big bills that you don't want to be surprised with. So, under that, we got our title charges. escrow settlement charges. Each one of these is a fee that I have to charge to conduct the closing. Okay, those are my McMichael Gray fees for there. Anybody you working with O'Kelly, if you're working with Luter, if you're working with, any of the other great law firms that we have here, those guys are gonna have their fees laid out as well, okay? This is also the time you'll usually see the title insurance, owner's title insurance, lender's title insurance factored in there as well, okay? All right, under that, we got our commissions again. So, as we were talking about, that's usually a seller paid item. Sellers are usually paying for your commission. That doesn't mean you won't see charges for commission on the buyer side. If your buyer has to come up with some money to pay you, sometimes, if you didn't get your percentages that you wanted, you said, hey, buyer, you're gonna have to pay me, 0.5 percentage or whatever. We can throw that in on the closing statement. You're gonna see that on the buyer side. Government recording charges right there under that. Those are the fees that it costs me to record recordable documents. Most of the time, those two big ticket items are recordables are warranty deed, security deed. I gotta take those down to the county and get those recorded so they're on record. And these government recording charges are the fees that it costs me, okay, that I have to charge to do that. I got a recording fee on there. I got transfer tax on there. You'll hear that as stamp tax, things like that. State tax. Yeah, stamp tax, simple GRMA fee. And then we got another state tax down there to simple. Come on down under that. We're back in miscellaneous, okay? The catch-all of everything. Usually on the buyer side, things you'll see. Homeowners insurance paid full for a year. Lenders want that property to be insured. So they're gonna make you pay for a whole year of insurance up front. That way that property is at least insured for that year. We'll see that on the buyer side. Yes, ma'am.
So now is that a year starting after what we've already, that would be the year after we've already reimbursed the owner, they would have paid. Right?
Yes,
Like,
yes, so
look
your
at
homeowner's
page
insurance.
2.
Yep, so like your homeowner's insurance right here for your buyer, and let's say you bought on, if I'm not mistaken, February 14th, yeah. So we bought it on February 14th, that's when the policy starts, it goes to the end of the year. That is the year's worth of homeowner's insurance for 12 months. Excuse me, so it would go to February of the next year, okay? And then that's when their homeowner insurance would re-up.
But if you look on page 2, on your account, we're paying for home.
Okay, I got what you're saying now. So your impound accounts are, you'll pay for a year's worth of insurance up front. And then your impound accounts, you have to front load those, you have to fund those. Those impounds will pick up starting in year 2. So he pays for a whole year's worth of insurance up front. The next year when that bill comes due, that's when his impounds kick in. And that's when they start paying. Okay, does it make sense?
I don't know.
Okay,
I'm just trying, so, but you paid the $624.99.
you paid that into your escrow account. Yes, ma'am.
So what I'm trying to understand, so when I pay, or my client is
Yep.
paying for the 12 months.
Yep.
That's from February 2023 to February 2024.
And then that kicks in for his 2024 to 2025 payment.
Okay,
Right?
so then my client would then get credit for that, they've already paid up front. That's one.
Okay, so those escrow accounts, he's already paid into it,
Right,
and then he keeps paying every month into that escrow account. Okay, and that escrow account, bills and value, that's usually a cushion. They'll keep that in that escrow account. He won't get it back. It's usually a cushion in there in case his homeowner's insurance goes up. Now, at the end of the year, if there's a balance still in there, sometimes they will call and say, hey, your escrows are overfunded. Do you want us to send you a check? Or do you want us to just hold on to it in case something happens? And next year we go up on the value. Same thing with property taxes. If at the end of the year, you've got an overage in your escrow, a lot of times mortgage companies say, hey, they'll give you an option. Hey, do you want to check back or do you want to just hold this in escrow just in case? Because, I will say this, I've seen property taxes go up a whole lot. I've seen homeowners insurance go up a whole lot. I ain't really ever seen it go down.
okay.
that make sense? Perfect. All right, and then y'all,
Sorry, I have so many questions, but I'm just curious,
no, you're good.
under commissions.
Yep.
Where it says on the second page.
Yep.
Where it says homes, like if somebody was still in there, what is that?
All right, no, so it said listing agent to free homes, that is just a spillover from the person. That's actually that person's, yeah,
Homes, just, okay.
no, that is a spillover of that person's brokerage name. So it'd be list agent to free homes.
Oh,
Okay.
because while we're talking about commission,
Yep,
this is a question I've never understood, and you may not be able to answer it,
okay,
but why is, like, the listing agent is an agent for the seller?
mhm.
And then you've got the selling agent, which is the agent for the buyer.
Why do they call it that? I'll be honest with you, I don't know why the terminology is like that, but I'll tell you how I always remember it. Selling agent sells the home to the buyer is how I've always remembered it. And then listing agent would list the property.
Okay. It just.
Why?
Like,
As far as, let me tell you, when I first got into business, I messed it up all the time. And
Yes, I messed that up the other day. Someone was like, hey, reach out to the selling agent to get the buyer's email. And I was like, why would I reach out to the seller? It's like in my head, I was like, sellers, you know, like, no, the selling agent.
Yeah.
It's essentially the buyer. It's just like,
yeah, and like I said, the way I always remember it, or the way that, which it sounds dumb, but it's the way I'm thinking to him. Selling agent sells the home to the buyer. It is crazy. Let me tell you, do I actually know why they call it that?
You know?
Yeah,
Okay, as long as it's confusing to everybody, then I
No,
get it.
right.
Okay.
that is a common thing. Don't feel bad about that.
But I like that trick because it's exactly what.
Y'all, under here, we've also got HOA initiation fee, and then we've got a HOA transfer fee. Usually any HOA fees will be under there as well. Another thing that you'll see in there, pretty common to see in that miscellaneous section, excuse me, for a buyer, is going to be debt payoffs. Sometimes their debt to income ratio isn't what the lender wants it to be. And they'll say, well, hey, you gotta pay off the index card, or hey, you gotta pay off this. Or sometimes you'll see buyers and they'll wrap their, on a loan into the home as well, things like that. You will see those payoffs, or pay downs, however you want to think of them as, in this section as well, just something that you may see. Finally, down here, we've got our subtotals looking on the buyer side, due from borrower. This number right here, that's the cash close, y'all. That's what they should wire for the closing. Okay? You'll usually see that number too for the buyer. You'll see that on the CD that you get from the lender. That number right there should jive up with what's on the CD. Okay. Finally, down there, total. This number down here at the bottom for the buyer is what I call the drive out price. Okay, after tax, tag, title, everything, that's what you're driving off the lot with. That number is sales price plus all the fees involved, minus all the credits they got. Okay? Once you tally everything up, that's what it comes out to. $20,000, yeah, right there, you've got, you had a home sale for $600,000 and you had 20-something thousand worth of fees once it's all said and done. That's kind of the game. That's how financing works. You gotta pay to play. But that is the settlement statement, y'all. Probably, I would say the most important document in closing. Because again, this is where all the money is going. This is what everything's broke down into. If you have any issues, usually you can spot them on this. And that is why I go over it the first day of every closing. I know most attorneys at McMichael Gray go over this bad boy first day in the closing. Because you can catch a lot of problems here. And you want to go ahead and get everybody. You want to put everybody at ease by going over the numbers, because this is a big lifetime purchase. This is the biggest purchase you'll make in your life. and you are fixing to lay down a lot of money. You want to know where the money's going, so. Yes, ma'am.
Is the due from buyer amount in the credit column versus the debit column because they've already wired that money before you get to the table?
By the time you. Now, if it comes down to it, and I have, if it, if I need a check or something that closes like $100, well, I have to see that $100 by the debit.
Okay.
So, that's another thing. Let's go ahead and kind of, while we're on the subject of wiring, funds, make sure, that your parties, if you're representing a buyer, have wired the money either right before closing or a couple days before closing. Always a good thing. They should have got a CD from, their mortgage lender about 3 days before the closing happens. You want to go ahead and get that money over, send a wire. If it comes down to it and you're after closing, this is my firm policy. I can't really speak to everybody's firm, but if they're like $100 shirt or something like that, a lot of times they take checks. That will make sure that both that money is wired, if not all wired. Okay. I see we're getting a little crunch for time. I think we gotta get out of here at 1:30. All right. Does anybody have any questions? Y'all online, do you have any questions or anything? Hey, you. Does anybody have any questions or want to talk about anything while I'm here? Or do you want to go through this settlement statement a little bit, more in depth on something?
Nothing this time, thank you.
I got a question. I just want to go back over, when do you reasonably ask for this information before closing? When do people expect this to be distributed without being too pushy?
So I would, on something like that. I don't think, a week out from closing or maybe a week and a half out would be unreasonable to ask for, hey, I want a seller side or I want a buyer side CD. I mean, a buyer side of Alta, if I have one. I don't think that'd be unreasonable.
Depends on.
If, every close is going to
The
depend.
balance, right?
Yeah, it's gonna depend on a couple of things, but I don't think that'd be unreasonable. Usually around that time, we're about a week out. I don't
Okay.
know if it's reasonable to have for it.
Thanks.
All right. Ladies, anything? You got anything?
Gotta talk to it.
I got a couple of things. I'm trying to talk.
Yeah, I know.
That's
not real either.
yeah. Anything, you good to go? Good to go. All right. Anything you want to?
No, I've asked all my questions in real time.
Okay, and y'all, I tell you what, we're about 5 minutes early. Let's think of some, yes,
I got one more.
yes.
So once this is done, since this is the first thing, then what comes next?
So
Then we're just.
after that, way I usually do, I hop into the loan package and we're signing out that loan package to get some fucking done. Kind of a quick rundown while I've got the 5 minutes. And if any of y'all have any questions after this, just because I know this is gonna be quick, send Emily an email, give me a call or send me an email. I have no problems taking time, I'll step with y'all on this. But usually after we talk about that settlement statement, the next thing I'm doing is diving into the loan package, okay? The first couple of big ticket items that in every loan package that, you're gonna have are gonna be CD, closing disclosure. That's gonna come from the lender. Things that are gonna be on there are things like, their monthly payment. You're gonna have the cash close on there. You're gonna have a breakdown of your escrows on there. That's usually the next item that I hit. After that, we're gonna talk about the note. Okay, that note, another very important, document in that closing. The note is what's going to secure the loan. Okay, the things you're gonna have on the note: loan amount, interest rate, their principal and interest only balance, which is the amount that they're paying towards their loan every month. Okay, that's before they factor in the escrows. You'll see that on there. They're gonna have their payment date on the note. A lot of times it'll be about a month out from whatever you're closing. So if you're closing, like a loan I closed yesterday, we're in May, I think their first payment is like in July, like usually you're a month or so out from first payment. Just, ballpark in there, and that's just an example. That's not always every time, but, for all intents and purposes, it's usually about a month out.
What was that ratio? That you said loan amount, interest rate, and then you said,
Loan amount, interest rate, and then they're gonna have your principal and interest only balance, which is what they're paying towards their loan every month before you factor in escrows. Alright? So a lot of times when I'm going over a loan, especially with a first time home buyer, they'll see that number and they'll think, Steve, my monthly payment went down. It did not go down. That's just the amount that you're paying towards that loan. Huh? You'll have payment term, you'll have a payment address on the note, and then, you'll also have payment terms like when to make the payment. A lot of times it's between the 1st and 15th of every month. After the note, what I talk about is the warranty, which is the document that transfers property from the seller to the buyer, okay? On that warranty deed, what I'll usually get everybody at the table to do, say, hey, check the name for me, make sure I spelled the name right. Even if the guy's name is like Steve Smith, I'm gonna get him to check it, because there have been plenty of times where he's like, well, Smith is spelled with a silent K. What? Okay, no problem. I'll run back and I'll fix that for you, my man.
That could be fixed.
But yeah, that can be fixed, no problem, but we need to catch it right there. I've had closings before where, I've done that. People have looked at the warranty deed, nodded their head, given me the thumbs up, and then we'll get to the end of the closing, they'll look at me and be like, so is it cool if my name was misspelled on that? We've already funded, we've already gone through all this. It is a lot harder to fix then than it would have been if you would have said, oh, that's wrong right there. I can usually run and get it fixed in no time. So remember that too, y'all. At any of these closings, don't feel bad to speak up, and especially, at the time you realize it. Okay. After we talk about the deed, we'll usually talk about this, the warranty deed. I'll talk about the security deed. Okay, security deed helps, collateralize the loan, but major thing the security deed does, it talks about foreclosure. Okay. Every security deed, that's what the whole point of that security deed being there is for. It is to talk about foreclosure and what happens. And the way I've always explained it, hey, Georgia is a non-judicial foreclosure state. What that means is the lender does not have to take you to court to foreclose on this property. If you miss payments under this loan, the lender has the right to start the foreclosure process. Okay? The easy way to sum it up, if you don't pay, you don't stay. That's the way I always, we'll short and sweet it there at the end, because that's the part everybody will need. Those are the major items right there. Everything else in that loan package is going to be pretty standard. They're in all those documents are in every single loan package that you will ever close. From the first time you close your first one to you close your 100, you'll see these documents a million times. There'll be miscellaneous documents usually saying stuff about, are you okay with, making monthly payments? You understand you got to make the monthly payments, and, stuff about your employment, just to make sure you're still employed. But other than that, like I said, big ticket items coming to a closing. Settlement statement, closing disclosure, note, warranty deed, security deed. Those 5 things right there. If you kind of have an idea of what's going on there, especially with this document that we went over today, you're going to be just fine in every closing you go to, okay? And I think we have just hit time. Y'all, if you got any questions or closings, send them on over and we will get you taken care of. Call me, feel free to call me. I'll pick up the phone. Anytime you got some call, text. We'll make it happen. Text that 404 number. Cause that's the only one of those that gets text. I've had people say, hey, we texted you, and they try to take my office phone. My desk phone does not get text.
It'll send you a text back being
Okay,
like, hey, you
yeah.
sent a text from landline.
So y'all feel free to ask any questions you want. I'm here to help. I got no problems helping. So, and I thank y'all for showing up today. This was a good one. Hopefully we'll get us some more topics. If y'all have any kind of topics that you're just like, hey, we want to see this. We want Carter to talk about this. Shoot that all over to me, shoot it all over to Emily. We'll try to make it happen, okay? And that's it. Thank y'all.
Yeah, Sharon, we can also do another, it's called closing others. We did that in January, February. Maybe that would be good to do again later in the year, just like. Thanks, say like, feel, yeah, like what you're saying, yeah, like see somebody say something, like feel it in your gut, like speak up, like, okay, something doesn't feel right, or my buyer, or my seller told me this, like, should I pass that along, or. That's always a good class, I think.
You know, it's, you know, it's one of those things, I think a lot of people. Will always be like, well, it'll work itself out, and it will not. You need to, you need to learn it. You know, I've definitely, you know, I've had closings before. I've had folks that will, you know, I did close one time when I was managing out in West Cobb, and we sat there, we went over the settlement statement. And, you know, you go over it twice, you go over it one side of the seller, one side of the buyer. And we finally got closed and everything, and we got funded, and everybody was fine, and everybody went to the parking lot. And I walked back to my office, and I had the agent for the buyer call for that office. Now, it was, and I mean, it was a good way to get back to the office. You know, he didn't really say anything. I turned around and said, he looked at me, and he was like, seller's credit was wrong. I said, what? The seller's credit was wrong. I said, you didn't say that? He said, you know, yeah, I didn't say anything about it. I thought you'd catch it. And I was like, well, if I said, you know, this is what it was, come to find out, you know, the seller's credit was capped anyway, because it was an FHA loan. There is a cap on that. And I was like, well, we've already funded, we've gone through it. Your buyer's already driving off over to his house. You know, what do you want me to know? You know what I'm saying? So say something before we get that home. You know what I mean? And like I told him, I said, why did you?
Let them sign that.
Why would you? Why did you? It wasn't like, you know, you signed it and you stopped it there.
Right.
We signed 300 other papers.
Right.
And you said it was cool until just now.
Easy to let everybody leave.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Everybody's out there about that. This guy is, you know, we're already, this guy's already in the truck. He's 15 minutes out. He's going to visit out. So always, you know.
Speak up.
Well, thank y'all.
Yep,
We got some more afternoon, yeah.
sounds good. Okay, well, my God, it's just. If we, there you go. So what's happening? And we can have the class talk about settlement statements. And, now we're, shutting it down for the day. That's good. Everything good? Well, I'm trying to say it's gonna be what, second, because I don't know how to show that. We have what? 3 total? Or man?
Go home.
I'm gonna try, I don't want to think how much I can.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I do.
Yes, and that.
because we studied it, or is it?
Yeah, through school and from school, I.
Let's say.
Like I was on. But all of them. There's just been.
Yeah.
I know.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we'll make it too immersive. Yeah.
Mira, no te tocaba otra cosa. No le toca porque mi hija ya me las preguntó. No, hombre.
The other one I heard, really good. Was that stone. But let me do some research and I'll put it in. Well, man, thank you, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello. Café, you can go. Los esperamos, los esperamos.
La audiencia ya no es.
Y lo interesante del asunto me parece que todos necesitan más encontrados.
Ya llevo
Hablar
las que más piden, Rick.
hablar de la pena y la que se asoma.
Hoy me ha
Estábamos diciendo, si Claudia no viene, la próxima vez que me llame le cuento.
También te quiero mucho.
Por si no.
Tengo muchas preguntas hoy.
Sí. Hoy día no tenemos a Maxine, tuvieron y es por una buena causa. Están todos los abogados que había un curso de título que tenían que hacer obligatorio y les avisaron sin allá. Entonces le dije, no te preocupes, así que probablemente voy a ver de tener a Maxine, no este miércoles que sigue, pero no. O sea, no va a tener clase técnica, pero de repente va a ser interesante que nosotros conversemos acerca de la parte del contrato. Ahora, ¿qué tópico quieren ustedes revisar? Si yo les pregunto a cada uno de ustedes, ¿cuál es la parte más débil que tienen ustedes en el contrato? Hermano. Bueno, los contratos son los que hablamos de tomar, si estamos hablando comercial, es probablemente correcto lo que tú dices, ¿no? Pero si hablamos de los contratos de guard que nosotros manejamos, el contrato es el mismo. ¿Tú sabes qué quiere decir boilerplate? ¿Qué cosa es boilerplate?
Dentro de los contratos.
Acá en Georgia dicen que los contratos de nosotros son boilerplates. Y también lo dicen en otras áreas. ¿Sabes qué es un boilerplate? Cuando hacían las imprentas que tenían todo lo que iba a poner en la imprenta y simplemente los copiaban, los imprimían. Los contratos están prehechos. A menos que haya una modificación al contrato, eso está, si tú jalas el contrato de Purchase Agreement ayer, o lo jalas hoy, o lo jalas mañana, es el mismo contrato. ¿Qué cosa es lo que hace la diferencia? ¿Qué cosa es lo que hace que cada contrato sea único? La información que pones, porque todas las propiedades no son iguales. Los precios no son iguales, la manera que se negocia no es igual. ¿Correcto? Y adicionalmente, ¿ustedes saben cuál es la jerarquía de los contratos?
¿La garantía?
La jerarquía. El boilerplate. Con el contrato impreso. ¿Sí? es el mismo, si lo agarra Claudia, si lo agarra Lourdes, si lo agarra Fernando, es el mismo contrato. ¿No? Pues está preimpreso. Es el mismo contrato. ¿Cuál es la segunda cosa que cambia los contratos?
Información que no corresponde.
Se llama field. Los que son los que le dicen los blancos, son los blancos que tienen el contrato, ¿correcto? ¿No? Porque tú puedes agarrar un contrato de Claudia, pero Claudia está ofreciendo en 1, 2, 3, 4 Main Street, y tú estás ofreciendo el 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Lawrenceville Highway, y ya cambiamos el contrato, ¿correcto? ¿Qué cosa cambia el contrato adicionalmente también? ¿Qué es eso? Porque tú puedes agarrar un contrato que sea con la forma convencional, o tú puedes agarrar un contrato que tenga la LFHA. Puedes tener un contrato, si lo hace Germán, que de repente no tiene financial contingency. ¿Estamos? ¿Y qué cosa es lo que cambia? O sea, esto de acá está por encima de lo que es el borde, de lo que es el contrato impreso. Esto de acá está por encima de lo que llenamos en los blancos, y la número 4 es, ¿cuál creen que sea el número 4?
Buena pregunta.
Y llenamos, tenemos el contrato impreso, llenamos los blancos, correcto, y aparte le añadimos los exhibits y los satélites, ¿no? ¿Qué más puede cambiar el contrato? Que está por encima de lo que va a haber en estos documentos. Pero no qué también.
A lo que se refiere cada
¿Cuáles términos?
algo de ley. Algo de ley, no sé.
¿Qué más se pueden hacer ustedes a los contratos que modifiquen la letra del contrato?
Tiempos.
Pero eso está en lo que se llena, correcto.
Algo que esté por encima de un Excel.
Mira que estamos todavía transmitiendo.
¿En vivo? Sí.
Sí.